Hello, and welcome to PHI Connect Skills, how to submit a skill for clinical competencies and new hire onboarding. First, we're going to talk about clinical competencies. All the clinical competencies are the previous national and regional competencies that we've seen before in a PDF format and uploaded to various platforms such as PHI View. All these clinical competencies are now located in PHI Connect Skills. These skills, specifically clinical competencies, are only accessible to base educators, mentors, and leadership AMBS and above. Editing is restricted to base educators, mentors, leadership, and AMBS above as well. And if there's any type of major issue with any form, deleting is restricted to leadership, AMBS, and above. Of course, self-completion is restricted across the board for all users. This prevents anyone from submitting a skill on themselves as they cannot evaluate themselves. With that said, all of the clinical competencies will be submitted under the evaluator's login, meaning that if a base educator, mentor, AMBS, or clinical education coordinator are evaluating an employee, they will log into their PHI Connect and select that user's name in the members, which we'll show in just a minute, and submit it through their username. So let's go ahead and take a look at these clinical competencies. So first you're going to need to log into PHI Connect, and on the left hand side of the screen we're going to go to Members, then Skills. You will then be brought to the Skills homepage. In the upper left hand corner we're going to click Add Skill. You'll be prompted with some beginning instructions that you'll need to follow. Our first step is to select the member being evaluated. Our next step is the skill selection. We're going to go with glucometer. The skills form will now populate with all the objectives related to the glucometer clinical competency. We'll leave the status as pending and refer to any of the instructions here on how the skill date is going to be set. So obviously skill date is the day that we're evaluating, and the expiration date, according to clinical policy, if we go back and reference it, glucometer is an initial clinical competency, not a reoccurrent. So we can leave the expiration date blank, which when submitted will show not applicable. We'll scroll down and begin to fill in the boxes selected. This is initial, recurrency, or review. We can also select age classification, and on these forms you can select multiple age classifications. So for glucometer, we're able to use a glucometer on all age ranges, so we'll select all of them. Under venue of validation, we have 3 different ways we can validate these: skills, HPS scenario, if approved in your program, and cadaver lab. We'll do skills verification. Just review the standard learning objectives, and then you can begin to evaluate the employee based off of the guidelines below. If they successfully pass, you can just click the Passed Radio button. If they fail, as you see here, a comments box will pop up. As stated on all of the forms, you'll need to review the question mark and all the contents required for documenting a failed clinical competency. If we have passed, we can also add additional comments here if needed. Once you've completed the skill, you may click Save Changes. You will then get an overview of what you filled out. As we see here, we have our correct skill date, expiration date, we have an initial, age classification for all, via skills verification, and they passed the entire procedure and no comments were necessary. This will now be sent over to that crew member's skills profile where they will validate that skill. Now let's discuss the new hire onboarding category. The new hire onboarding category consists of a shift performance evaluation and a flight performance evaluation. These 2 forms used to be in one, called a shift evaluation, that we used to fill out in a PDF format. We decided to break these 2 forms apart, which we will dive into later when we go through all of the new hire onboarding forms. The other forms include an aircraft scavenger hunt, aircraft radio and map reading, release to second trainee, and release to independent flight status, and finally a training progress report. All of these new hire onboarding forms are accessible to mentors and leadership AMBS and above. Also, editing is restricted to mentors and leadership AMBS and above. If there is any type of issue with any form and it needs to be deleted, deleting is restricted specifically to leadership AMBS and above. Of course, self-completion is restricted, so no new hire or any other clinical crew member complete any of these forms on themselves. Also, it's noted that submitted is done under the evaluator's login, meaning the mentor will log into their PHI Connect account, go to Skills, and they'll select the member name of the person being evaluated. So let's go over some of these new hire onboarding forms. First, you will need to log into PHI Connect Skills, and on the left-hand side of the screen, go to Members, then Skills. You will then be brought to the Skills homepage. In the upper left-hand corner, you will then go to Add Skill. Once you are in Add a Skill, you will notice the instructions here and follow them as indicated. For new hire onboarding forms, we will first need to select the person we are evaluating. Under Skills Selection, we'll go past Clinical Competencies, past Clinical Opportunities, and we see the new hire onboarding category as indicated. Let's start with the Flight Performance Evaluation. As you see here, the skills form is populating, and again, you'll follow the indicated instructions here on how you're going to enter the skill date and expiration date. So of course, the skill date will be the day that we're completing it, and the expiration date will usually be set for most new hire forms 1 year from the day it was completed. As we start to go through this form, you'll notice some commonalities between this form and the shift evaluation. So for flight performance, we see that we'll be able to select a date, a flight number, whether the call was a scene or interfacility, and mode of transport. You will also select through the global list who the mentor was. As I said before, the mentor will be logged into their PHI Connect, and the mentor and the new hire will sit down and complete all of the performance matrix and their evaluation of 1 through 5 or observation based on the scale above. The mentor will enter their scores, and the new hire will enter their scores. Down below, comments are required from both the mentor and the new hire. Once this form is completed, you'll click Save Changes. This flight performance evaluation form is to be completed after every patient flight. Our next form we'll go over is the shift performance evaluation. As you see, the form populates, and again, following the instructions as listed. As you see again, this has other parts that correlate with the shift evaluation PDF form we used to fill out. We see that there is some shift information, a mentor name, training status, whether they are pre-third seat trainee, third seat, or second seat, base and aircraft number, shift number, hours in service, and total flights for the shift. The shift performance evaluation portion is to be completed by the mentor. As you'll see, looks very familiar. You'll use the scoring section above and match all the objectives based on your scoring of the new hire. Again, this will be filled out on the mentor's PHI Connect profile, and both the mentor and the new hire will enter their comments as indicated. At the bottom of the page is an end of shift checklist, as just a friendly reminder of the items that need to be completed by both the mentor and the new hire at the end of their mentor shift, such as the flight evaluations, which we just went over, clinical experience log, which we went over in the skills introduction, and innovation log, which we also went over in the skills introduction. Check these if they were completed. If they weren't completed, obviously don't check them, and then click Save Changes to submit the form. The shift performance evaluation is to be completed at the end of every mentored shift. The other important forms that we'll briefly go over: aircraft radio and map reading. As we see here, looks very familiar to the PDF form. We have discussion points of radios, and you can mark whether they were successful or unsuccessful, and if marked successful, be sure to look at the comments required on what needs to be documented. Same thing with map reading. They can be successful or unsuccessful, which will prompt a comments and concerns box. Our next form, aircraft scavenger hunt. Again, follow the instructions as indicated. And you can go over all the different line items here with the new hire. And again, unsuccessful will prompt a comments box, or they are successful. The last form a mentor will be able to fill out is a training progress report. Again, follow the instructions. There's a performance criteria definitions listed. You're able to indicate a score and leave any additional comments if needed. You'll continue to go through all those, and in the areas of strength or weakness, if it is a strength, no box will populate, but if it is a weakness, you'll need to document some type of plan of action. Again, once you've completed this form, you'll click Submit Changes. There are two forms listed in the new hire onboarding section that are specifically for clinical education coordinators. However, the mentors do have access so they can review the content needed to move to second seat trainee and independent flight status. If we go to the release to second seat, please read the instructions. As you see, this is only to be completed by a clinical education coordinator. However, you can go down and review all the line items that we look for when we audit. This also goes the same for the release to independent flight status. Again, to be filled out by the clinical education coordinator only, and you can see all the line items that the clinical educators look for when auditing. And after any of these skills forms are submitted and you need to go back to that new hire or clinical crew member you were evaluating's page, you can go back to the left-hand side and click on Skills. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a drop-down member's name. You can click on that and scroll through the list or begin to type the crew member's last name. As you can see here, I can see the previous skills I have submitted, and if any of them need to be changed, you can simply click on the skill and click the Edit button to make any changes you need to. Again, this is only accessible for educators, mentors, and leadership.